Julie-Lynn Zahavich, who is going to lead us this afternoon in this panel. We're going to stick to the agenda fairly well, but if there's time for questions after, we will have questions available for this morning's presenters. If you want to, if there's enough time to do a little bit more and you have good questions. Anyway, you'll probably be quite saturated by then. But anyway, I'm very happy to present Julie-Lynn, and she is a forest conservation specialist with the PEI Department of Environment, Energy and Climate Action in the Forests, the Fish and Wildlife Division, and coordinator of the Forested Landscape Priority Place Program, the FLPP. She serves on the boards of Nature PEI and the Canadian Council on Invasive Species, quite a broad spectrum of interests, and has over 15 years of experience in leading conservation initiatives and facilitating discussions. Her expertise makes her the perfect mediator for the Women in Forestry seminar panel, which you see in here, and I'll just turn this over to Julie-Lynn.
Thank you, Kathy. This is great. What a great event. Such inspiring talks this morning, and I think a really inspiring group of panelists as well, who I think I've worked with all of you in some capacity, including Mary Jane, during your brief stint with government, which is great. But I think I'll hand it over to you guys first to introduce yourselves, and maybe as a start-off question, you could just tell us a little bit about how you got involved in forestry or forest conservation in PEI.
So I'm Sarah Campion. I work at Macphail Woods, and I kind of started like really young. So when I was 5 years old, I started going to the camps at Macphail's. They host like a nature camp program there, and I started volunteering there with the camp program around 12, got my first job at 16, but it wasn't actually until post-Fiona that I started doing like chainsawing and really being in the woods. So I was always like doing restoration plantings and things like that with Macphail's, but yeah, it was post-Fiona storm damage was my first experience chainsawing, so it was kind of a crazy start for me.
Getting right into it. Hi, my name is Jen. I'm the forestry team lead at Macphail Woods, and my journey into the forestry career was not linear. In fact, I didn't really consider a career in forestry until about 4 years ago. And less than 10 years ago, I was a physiotherapist, so it's been a journey, but I took the course, the wildlife program at Holland College, and after I graduated, I found the Watersheds. And in the Watersheds, I got my exposure to conservation work and working with chainsaws. So that was great. I worked at a couple different watersheds, and from there, I got into private tree care, so shout out LeClair Tree Care. And after that, I wanted to be back in conservation, and that's where I found Macphail Woods, and that's where I've been for the last 3 years, working as the forestry team lead. And it's really great just because there's a broad strokes of different work that I do. Appreciate it for planning, also in the field, boots on the ground kind of work, and yeah, it's just a lot of different stuff.
Hi, I'm Joanna LeClair, and yeah, I didn't start with forestry either right away or on PEI. I was in Alberta taking an English degree. I started doing wildfire dispatching in the summers, and that was very fun. And a lot of my friends were foresters and forest technicians, and we got out to the woods a lot. And so I went to school at Maritime College of Forestry in 2013, graduated, worked for a mill in Alberta from 2013 to 2021, and there they have kind of if you're associated with the mill, you have forest management areas, so you do all the operational planning and supervising all your contractors to get wood to the mill and your log haul. And but while I was out there, I met a teacher from PEI, and we decided to move back to his homeland, and so I started doing management plans for the province when we moved here for a little bit, or for private woodland owners, I should say, for the FEP program. And yeah, and then eventually I got on with the province full time, and I'm a provincial forest tech, also now still doing woodlot management plans, but for the province and overseeing that work.
Okay, my name is Hanna Murnaghan, and I was introduced to forestry at a pretty young age because my dad owns his own forestry company and has had a long career in forestry, so spent a lot of time in the woods as a kid. After high school, I was working at No Frills, the grocery store, and I would look out the window thinking, man, I really don't want to be inside. So I knew I didn't want a desk job, that's for sure. And then that summer, I got a job working as a summer student with the Morell Watershed group. And I thought, wow, like this is a dream job, getting to be outside every day, learning about restoration and all the species on PEI. So I went to school at Holland College and did the 2-in-2 program with UPEI in wildlife conservation. And I've been with the Morell Watershed group ever since.
I think you guys know my story now. I guess what I didn't add is when I was a little kid, I went to a school in Southern Ontario. People think I've been called a 401 forester before. I don't know if that resonates with anyone. It's like the big highway in Southern Ontario. You go to U of T, you're a 401 forester. But in Southern Ontario, where I grew up, it's actually the Carolinian Forest region. It's beautiful old hardwoods, and the small school I went to had this beautiful intact Carolinian forest behind it, and at one point they put all these logs and like the kids weren't allowed to go into the forest anymore, and I was like, why? I was devastated, but I learned that that was because that there were impacts that the kids were making in the woods, and because it was such a special place that it needed to be preserved. So I think that was my early conservationist coming out in me. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I think some of these stories really, show how some of those early exposure when you're a child into nature and forest can influence your whole life. So that's really cool to hear. I'm going to start with a question of my own, a really easy one for you guys to kick it off. Just kidding. And then we'll open it up to the floor and see if anyone else has some questions for us. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge when it comes to keeping forest on the landscape in PEI and for Nova Scotia too? And what do you think are some solutions to overcome this challenge? And let me know if you want me to say it again if it comes to you. Okay, does anyone want to kick it off?
I think a big challenge that faces us is that people tend to act quicker than they just take the chance to observe the woods that they have. So I guess what I mean by that is after Fiona, there was a lot of people that just jumped into being a little bit of afraid of the trees that were on their property. A lot of people just cut trees down that were too close to their house, or there was a lot of cutting trees down that were slightly leaned or slanted. So that's a little bit challenging when, of course, you want to go in there and provide some sort of technique or solution for the forest, but I think a better solution is to, I guess, focus more on observation and spending time in your woods and seeing it change seasonally and falling in love with the forest, and yeah, just getting a better sense of maybe what it needs just by observing before you act.
So I think a challenge when it comes to forest conservation on PEI is that a lot of PEI is privately owned. And I think people, maybe not in this room, but other people have kind of lost their connection to the forest. We're not spending as much time there as we once did, whether that was hunting or trapping or foraging or collecting your own firewood. So I think kind of a big challenge is trying to reconnect people with the forest and help them understand the value of it and make them, want to conserve it more.
A challenge I would see right now is I do see like land clearing on the landscape, and I just worry about like, are we using the best end use for every piece of land? Like we're seeing forests become agriculture, agriculture become house plots, and yeah, I just would like to see maybe some broader land use planning or just more education so people can really think about it at a landscape level, what we're doing out here, I guess.
I think this probably echoes in PEI as well as Nova Scotia. Woodlots are, well, woodlot owners themselves are often asset rich and cash poor, so rural poverty still is prevalent across the Maritimes, and folks often see the woodlot as their emergency or their contingency fund. And like I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there needs to be that education and outreach out there that folks know how to harvest their trees appropriately, so that those trees are still there for future generations. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just pretty much second what everyone else said, and just like, yeah, a lot of people want to know the like monetary value when it is privately owned. They want to know, you know, like how much money can I get for these trees or these logs. But I think there's like value in other areas, you know, like if you're using it for education, if you're using it just for your own personal enjoyment, like there's a lot of value in that as well. So just, yeah, having people kind of understand that would be, yeah, a big one.
Thank you, everyone. I think at this point maybe we'll open it up to the floor and we can, if you have a question, you can say it and I'll try to repeat it so everyone can hear it. So any questions from the floor? Yeah.
Excuse me. Many of you talked about observing before taking any action, and I was quite interested in Mary Jane. You talked about, you did some training around selective harvesting of trees, and I was wondering if there's anything like that established on PEI, or if there could be, to help new landowners to conserve and selectively cut appropriately.
Okay. Yeah, so the question was, we heard a lot about observing the forest before taking action, and then Mary Jane talked about sort of selective harvest. And the question was, is there any sort of like education or sort of a gateway into learning how to do some of those lighter touch, I guess, maybe forestry practices in PEI? I don't know if anyone wants
I
to
can
take
just
that.
start by just explaining. So I think you're referring to the tree marking training? Yeah. So that was like a pilot. So tree marking, it's, as I mentioned, it's used heavily in Ontario. It's actually a requirement for hardwood management on Crown lands in Ontario. So like contractors, licensees are obligated to go and mark a stand using a certified tree marker before it gets cut. So we've been doing this at the community first for a while now, and some of the other practitioners in the province wanted to learn. So that course was actually for forestry practitioners, but there have been courses for tree marking for woodlot owners too. And I mean, if anyone from PEI wanted to come to one of our courses, that would be an option. I mean, it's speaking more to the professionals and then like going and doing, yeah, we're always looking to help with capacity building across the region.
Anyone else wanna?
Julie-Lynn, can I jump in for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
Just on that question alone, it just comes to mind that, well, the PEI Woodlot Owners Association does a lot of walks, and I just can think of a couple that I was on that specifically dealt with tree marking or selective harvesting of trees. So keep that in mind as we plan future walks. They all have different themes, and but there are opportunities to learn there. And also, in conjunction with Macphail's this year, we're hoping that they are going to offer a number of courses through their School of Woodland Ecology that will be open to members of the PEI Woodlot Association, and that's a potential topic that I can ask Eric to look into.
I know that you have to have a certain amount of land to be a member of the PEI Woodlot Owners Association. I'm just under 2.5 acres.
But
So
you can
for
still
the
go.
average person that has land and they want to develop it ecologically and, you know, conservation practices, what's available to the average person? I guess I'm
Well, we do have associate memberships, so you don't have to be a landowner. To be
I am a
oh,
landowner, but I just don't.
yeah,
have
you
that.
don't have enough to qualify for a full membership. But there are associate memberships with the PEI Woodlot Owners Association, and walks are open, and I believe the courses at Macphail's are open
Super.
to anyone. Yeah, and some of them have a cost associated with them, but.
And the membership forms are on the back table if you need.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I also suggest your local watershed group, depending on
Thank you.
where you are, because your local watershed group often can help you like with doing, depending on the route, because different groups do different things, but that would be a really strong contact for you.
Thank you.
Heather, are you gonna say the same thing?
No, actually, I have a question.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, great. So lots of great resources there. Heather.
Hi, I'm just curious, I've worked for the Watershed Alliance, and we've been looking at natural asset initiatives a lot lately. Basically trying to get people to value the things that we value, maybe for a different reason, to try and put economic values on it. And I'm just curious if anyone on the panel has heard of forest banking, or thinks there's an appetite for that kind of initiative here on PEI, which would incentivize woodlot owners to keep their woodlot, and would force developers to have to pay you to maintain that woodlot if they were gonna take down woods someplace else. And I wasn't sure if anyone on the panel had any thoughts, opinions, or I don't know, any. Mary Jane, please.
Do you guys have any? Yeah. All I'll plug is I talked a little bit about our FSC certification, and I know there are also private woodlot owner like FSCs being deployed on PEI. So FSC has a new program called Verified Impact that is doing exactly that. So it's for FSC certified forests to access like global finance for a variety of different ecosystem services. It's new, but it seems promising. I think it's one of FSC's ways to stay relevant. But I know Peter Burchell was speaking at the Sustainable Forestry Alliance conference a couple weeks ago, and he's kind of like leading that. So I think maybe chat with that group.
Yeah, it is the Sustainable Forest Alliance that's working on FSC certification. Jen, you go.
So I'm actually not too familiar with forest banking, I think you called it. But on PEI, there is the incentive that you can contact the province if you're looking to get some forestry work done, and there's a little bit of money that you can get back through that. So it kind of monetizes it for people to encourage them to do different kinds of work in their woods that you can get some of it paid for. And there was a time where there wasn't a whole lot of options for what that work you could do, like a lot of it was clear cutting or just like really aggressive techniques. But Gary Schneider, who founded Macphail's, he has sat down in many meetings, and he got a couple different other very sustainable techniques that you can now get applied to your woods, and a lot of those you can get some money to cover that. So hopefully that's incentive for people to work in their woods, is getting some of that covered by the province.
Awesome, and that program is the Forest Enhancement Program. Any other questions? Yes.
That may segue into your answer, but the bane of our existence in our property along the river is we have European buckthorn. So my question is, do you have any tips on combating European buckthorn? And is there any government program to help you get control of this invasive species? And any other comments on other invasive species? That'd be another great topic, is how hands-on how to deal with them on the property.
Well, that could be a whole other conference. Yeah, so there's, sorry, you guys probably want to answer this question. Any info on buckthorn? Common or glossy?
If I can just plug the Invasive Species Council, not sure if you're familiar with them or have worked with them, but their whole shtick is to tackle invasive species across the island. So they do a really good job at outreach, public education, and also they do a lot of boots on the ground work with, I think, landowners as well as organizations as well. So glossy buckthorn, I don't have any personal experience with that.
Mark, can I make a comment on that one?
Yes,
So I used to work at the Invasive Species Council, and I went to a really interesting webinar that is recorded and available on YouTube. I can give you my business card to send it along, but the takeaway from that was that the main thing to prevent is very successful in limiting the success of the buckthorn. So let's say you did some management in removing it, which you could get advice from the Invasive Species Council specifically, then planting the red-berried elder will help suppress it in the long term. So, yeah.
That'll also help stop the berries from forming, because I know they're spread by bird droppings. One piece of advice is not to like kick at the roots. I had a friend who was trying to manage buckthorn and broke her toe that way, so just be careful. Not fun. But it's just a stubborn plant. So yeah, definitely the Invasive Species Council is a great resource. Any other questions from the floor? Jeannie?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can suggest some trees, shrubs, plants that are native and would be good for people to put into their woods to add a variety.
So suggestions for trees, shrubs, plants to put into your woods to add some diversity to your forest.
So at Macphail Woods, every species that we're growing is native to PEI. We don't sell anything that isn't a native species, but there is going to be some kind of like important sort of keystone species. Obviously, like the hemlock, if you don't have that, that's something that's great to add. It kind of depends on maybe what you're looking to do. I know a lot of people like to add stuff that they think, or like not even that they think that is helping like wildlife. So there's things like the witch hazel and beaked hazelnut, things like that can be fantastic for like birds, squirrels. But if you could just go on our website, there's a ton of like information and resources on there about like what you can plant in what kind of areas. So like wet areas, dry areas, coastal windy areas, we kind of have information on all of that. And so it's sort of specific to your property and what you're looking to do.
And I think like before going ahead and planting shrubs or trees, go ahead and see what's already growing there, because there might be more than you think.
I might just add, again, reach out to your local watershed group. If it is close to a river or stream, we can access some species from the provincial nursery and plant those for you. And I know a lot of groups do focus on the riparian species, so we plant a lot of yellow birch, hemlock, sugar maple, and red spruce. We can also get some red oak the odd time. We have a dedicated volunteer that will provide us with 100 red oak every year to plant in our watershed. So.
I might also plug the 2 Billion Trees program, which is a provincial program, which you can apply to, and if you're a certain landowner size, you might get diverted over to the watershed groups. But if you have a large area, the province will plant it for you, and they have 6 native species that they plant. So yeah, great program. Yeah, over here.
So first I just want to say how thrilling it is to see a panel of young women, so yay! I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you for this event as well. But what I was hoping, Mary Jane, you could highlight a little bit more. You talked about 2-eyed seeing, you talked about having Myanmar representation on your board, but can you share with us some like tangible examples of how that plays out in the programs you do, and like leads to Indigenous stewardship of the landscapes you work on? And that'd be open to anybody, but you had spoken about that.
Sure, yeah. A lot of what we do is like training and capacity building and share, like actually that like sharing of knowledge. So, you know, we have access to like a lot of mapping and forest inventory, and, you know, it could range from bringing community members out to areas where we know there's an abundance of white birch to having folks in the Earth Keepers program join us for hemlock woolly adalgid programs. We've been very active with our hemlock program in supporting some of the efforts by Olnewag Education Center at Azidulisk, which is a property in the southwest that has a lot of hemlock. It's a gorgeous property, and they recently acquired it, and then they're like, oh, we just bought this property, there's all these hemlocks, we have to do something. So we've been donating a lot of capacity to that and helping treat those trees. And then on the Working Woodland Trust side, we're still a young organization. We are in relationship buildings with a lot of different communities. We actually find folks in Unama'ki are like, there's a bit more capacity there for implementing programs on private lands. So we're talking to them about co-stewardship of some of the properties that they're looking to acquire, or that for property owners who want easements. So particularly through our carbon program, you know, if there's a landowner in Unama'ki who is accessing our carbon program and we're developing a stewardship fund for that property, that money from that stewardship fund would go to UINR, and they would be the ones who would actually steward that land. So we would help kind of like co-facilitate and ensure that that carbon revenue is going to an Indigenous organization. Yeah.
Awesome. And did anyone else want to comment on that, like how you may be incorporating 2IC into your work?
So I wouldn't say I'm like high enough up at Macphail's to speak too much about like our partnerships or our projects, but I do know that like for a couple years now, Macphail's has been working really closely with some of the Indigenous groups, just trying to find black ash on PEI, and then also like to plant black ash. So it's something that we have been growing, and we've been working with like some different like groups and landowners, trying to plant it and then monitor it, see how it's doing. But we're also, I know there's one person in particular at Macphail's who's been spending a lot of time out in the fields just looking for black ash and then like monitoring it when we do find it. And there's been kind of some success. We've definitely found, I think, some patches that they weren't known to be on PEI before that. So yeah, but it's not really me. It's not really my department so much, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
Macphail Woods also has a medicine garden, which they worked with Helena to
Yes.
develop. Did you want to talk about that? Or?
That's about it. Like we have it, and it was Helena's insight and all her help like helped us put that together, and then we've been maintaining it. And every year at the Festival of Forest, she comes out and does a talk, which is incredible. And also with our kids camp program, we've also been trying to incorporate more kind of two-eyed seeing or just like partnerships with Indigenous groups, so that we can just like start implementing that at a younger age as well. Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Helena? No? Okay. Any other questions, Jane?
This is a very practical question. Our woodlot is long, about 1.6, almost a mile long, and about 400 feet or 500 feet wide. I love chainsaws, and I just wondered if there was some type of backpack, because I've got different sizes of chainsaws, and I get my Educator, I've got my Swedish axe. By the time I get to where I want to work, I'm exhausted, and I can't, there's no way I can use any type of vehicle. But I remember seeing in Finland 10 years ago these guys, and they had almost like a backpack for chainsaws, and I wondered if it had hit Canada.
Okay, so how do we get our chainsaws to the back of our long, narrow woodlots?
Besides asking your friends to come and help you.
Definitely a big challenge about forestry is having to walk all the way back to some of those woodlots. Something that I've done in the past is literally just putting the chainsaw with the bar guard on into a big backpack, and we've carried that out before. Another thing that works for us is at Macphail's, we carry what's called a felling belt. So it's a belt that goes around your waist, and it's got a pouch for wedges, it's got your axe in the back, it's got a tourniquet on one side of it. So what I typically like to do is the side that has my wedges, I will rest my chainsaw on top of those wedges and just kind of like hold my chainsaw close to me so that those wedges carry most of the weight. And that felling belt, you can just buy the belt from any carpentry store like Home Depot. You can get it there, and then the wedges pouches, they can come from online. So that's the solution that we use at Macphail's there. But otherwise, it is days of lugging saws out.
No, I like the idea of the felling belt.
And it is just a good thing to have, just to have all your tools on your person. So if you are working out in your woods, you always have to have a tourniquet or a pressure bandage with you. So having it all on your belt there, I mean, it's one of my favorite tools to use out in the woods. So it's a good thing.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments? No. Okay. Helena.
Possibly a weird question, but are any of the native willow species used in coastal erosion help?
Are any of our native willow species used for coastal forest restoration?
Well, not, sorry. You know how we have a lot of erosion and Fiona was kind of like, hey, look at that. I was just wondering if anybody's using the willow because of its long roots and blah.
Okay, yeah, to help with erosion. Okay, cool.
So yeah, we've been using willows a lot at Macphail's with our like coastal restoration projects. Again, I'm not necessarily the one that's like designing these, I'm just the one that takes the plants and goes and plants them. It is something that I believe there's like 6 different species of willows that Macphail's has been using, and part of that's also because of they're so easy to propagate. You can just take a cutting, it's super quick and simple, and then like even if that cutting itself dies, typically the roots are still alive and it will just send up new shoots, so that's super helpful. But we've also been looking a lot at like what's just already on PEI, which is a lot of like the grasses. The grasses are super important when it comes to those coastal restorations, the flowers, I think some of the asters, like New York aster, things like that, and then bayberry, roses. So willows, yes, but like really what we're looking at is like what are the roots doing specifically, because things like willows, bayberries, and roses, they tend to form like root mats, and so that's kind of I think what Macphail's is focusing on, is just trying to get like roots in the ground. But yeah, we are using willows, and I believe it's been successful as far as I know.
Yeah, the watershed groups have been doing some of that too. A lot of groups are trying more nature-based solutions on the coast rather than hard armoring, so willows are a part of that, and then using pieces of driftwood or hay bales or lots of other techniques to try and stop the shorelines from eroding.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to ask my own question. What advice would you give to other young women or young people interested in working in forestry or conservation? Like if they were just starting out in their career, what might you tell them?
So like right off the bat, like volunteer your time where you can. It's super rewarding to volunteer. It's like, it's never a bad thing. You're not like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. So that's just a great way to make connections, to kind of try out different work. It gives you an opportunity to kind of try, because I think like forestry can be sort of all-encompassing term sometimes for a lot of different types of work, so it just gives you a chance to try a lot of different types of work. And then, yeah, kind of know maybe what it is that you're wanting to do. Do you want to be boots on the ground, getting muddy, out in the rain? Do you want to be chainsawing? Or do you want to be like in an office, like writing and implementing policies that are going to like help, you know, bring forestry into the future and keep us like moving forwards?
I would say my advice to give to young people would be that confidence is built over time and with experience. It's okay to start doing things and also be scared. You don't have to wait for this bout of confidence to come and then go and do the thing. You can do it uncertain, just, you know, be confident in asking questions and find a network of people that make you feel safe to ask those questions, like everyone in this room here today. But you don't have to wait for confidence to start something. Just, you can do it while being scared.
Yeah, for sure, and definitely on that note, like, just apply to any job. If it says 5 years experience, ignore that, just apply for it. There's a lot of retirements coming up as that certain generation moves on to retirement, so you might as well try your luck. And also, if lace-up steel-toed boots are very uncomfortable for you, try putting bomba socks in them and getting them sized so that fits right. It's a game changer for me.
I would just echo what Jen said. You know, it's scary to start new things sometimes, but just kind of go into it and don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, no one expects you to know it all right off the bat, and there's so many elements to forestry, so it's okay if you need to ask for help with GIS mapping or how to best prune a tree or what trees to plant in a certain area. There's so many experts on PEI, and they're so willing to help. They want to see you have a successful project, so just don't be afraid to ask for help.
I love what everyone has said so far. The only thing I think I can add is mentorship. So find people that you admire in careers you admire and bug them and make them meet you for coffee or even a beer. It's how I've gotten to where I am, having excellent mentors. Will Martin was some people might know him. He's a kind of early pioneer of some of the ecological forestry practices, and he's since gone on to work for the American Forest Foundation. So unfortunately we lost him in the Maritimes, but he's been extremely influential for my career, and it was very, very helpful to have someone who I could lean on for support and advice.
Awesome, great answers. We'll go back out here. Kelsey.
Speaking of career, what has been a highlight of your career so far?
Yeah, so what has been a highlight of your career so far? It's right, I always bug you, Sarah, but you want to start.
That's what I get for sitting on the edge. Dang. And I was gonna make a run for it. So for me personally, just like being in education and having like been volunteering since I was about like 12 years old. So I'm 26 now, so that's like 10 plus years of kind of working in education. I have kids that were like 6 years old coming through the camp that are now taking the chainsaw courses. They're like 20 years old, and so just to see how like I was able to have an impact on these people in some degree, like whether it was me or Eric or someone at Macphail's, but just knowing that I'm part of an organization that is, you know, hopefully making a difference, hopefully inspiring the new generation that'll come after me. So
I would say one of the accomplishments that I can think of is being a part of the women-led chainsaw safety courses that are offered at Macphail Woods. So we held our first ever woman-led chainsaw safety course last year, so that's Sarah and I that lead that. In the past, it's been hosted by our director, Eric, who is also great and hosts a great chainsaw safety course, but it was really great to be in a room that was all women learning together, as we were learning a lot from the people that took that class as well. And so it's really great to be a part of that. So women-only chainsaw course, April 11th and 12th, happening again this year.
A highlight for me, I guess, would be getting more involved with PEI's wildfire program. I got to go out as a safety officer a couple times to Manitoba last year. I mean, I got to know Scotia by your house there. And yeah, it was really cool to see the country and be able to help out.
I would also say that just inspiring like younger people is really rewarding. We hire a lot of summer students at our watersheds, and sometimes they have no experience with being outdoors, and just seeing them gain an appreciation for the environment here on PEI, even if they don't go on in a career in forestry or anything like that, they're still going to take what they learned and appreciate the environment for the rest of their life.
I also echo that, seeing young folks. I have an amazing team of mostly people who are younger than me. I've got one staff who's older than me, so I mean it's in general like a pretty young team, but there's a lot of enthusiasm and good ideas that come from working with younger folks that inspire me daily. But I will like plug like a huge milestone in my career was definitely contributing to the Forest Practices Review. At the time I was 28 years old, and I got invited to speak to Professor Leahy's expert panel on silviculture and natural disturbance and all of these things like I had only been learning about for like 4 years. And then I got nominated to be on the Minister's Advisory Committee from that, or appointed. That didn't last long. I got kicked off when the Conservatives got it. But it was a really amazing experience to be able to do with someone in my late 20s, early 30s.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yeah, here.
So this is similar to a question that was already asked, but any advice for people who are like you know, in their late 30s looking to transition into career in forestry?
Great question. Any advice for anyone who's like in their maybe late 30s looking to transition into the field of forestry?
Just in general advice, like I was always raised believing that it's never too late to do something new. Like there's lots of people who are well into their 60s, 70s that maybe decide to go back to school and do something different. Like just because you've decided to do one thing doesn't mean you can't make a change later in life. So like for sure, like just, yeah, put yourself out there, try it.
same, try all the different things. I tried Watersheds, I was in private tree care, and now I'm at Macphail, so just wherever you can get your foot in the door, try it out, and just know that where you might not like one thing, there's a ton of different parts of forestry, so there's lots out there.
When I went to school at MCFT, there were a lot of mature students, and they bring a lot of maturity and experience to the table, and it really helps them get through school. And historically, you used to have to work a year before going to school, so I think it can only help you to go later in life when you know yourself better.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone is saying, and if you are interested in the watershed groups, there are different programs that look for people over the age of 30. So don't let that discourage you for sure, and take advantage of any volunteer opportunities too, to network and learn about all the different organizations that are part of forestry here on PEI.
Yeah, I think having people with life experience is equally, if not more valuable than having people with a formal education. And I know I've hired staff that don't have a forestry degree, but have that passion and interest and read about forestry on the weekends and make up for that lost time. And my one staffer who doesn't have a degree, he's amazing. So don't pigeonhole yourself. You bring a lot of value just in having a little bit more life experience.
Yeah, I agree, and don't sell yourself short. Even if you don't have experience in forestry, you probably have a lot of transferable skills that could be used in this field. And I feel like I saw a stat once that Oprah Winfrey didn't start the Oprah show until she was 40, so you still have time to become the Oprah of forestry. Any other questions from the floor? Okay, well, I'm going to ask one again. Let's see. If you had unlimited resources for one forest management or conservation project in PEI or Nova Scotia, what would you prioritize and why?
Just for me, kind of coming from the education side of things, education for sure, whether it's, getting to know your native species, your plants, your animals, all of that, or if it's more in depth, actually schooling or some kind of course or workshop that you're taking, I just think the education, if we could get more people educated, then there would be better understanding, and if there was a better collective understanding, then I think we would have an easier time all working towards the same goals, so.
That's a good question. Perhaps putting more money into those provincial programs that help support landowners do work on their own property. That'd be great to see, just to give them more incentive to want to do some work.
Well, I know we talked a little bit about invasive species, and I always feel like that's an area that doesn't have enough resources to deal with every incidence of them, and yeah, it'd be great to see more work there.
Unlimited resources, kind of every non-for-profit's dream. So it's hard to think of what you'd do if you had unlimited resources, but I know one thing, all the watershed groups, if it was ever possible to get a larger buffer zone along our rivers and streams, expand that across all of PEI, so all of them had, at least 60 meters, maybe more in some high sloped areas, because that's just going to provide so many benefits to the forest ecosystem. They're biodiversity hotspots. You're going to end up protecting a lot of species that way, and also provide a lot of benefits to people as well. It's going to make better water quality, and watersheds and wetlands absorb water like sponges. So with climate change or more heavy rainfall events, it could be a way to protect our infrastructure as well.
I'm gonna say, I think she's trying to say regulations. Yeah. That's what I would really advocate for, and I don't think money can really get you there, but resources, I just think, I can say this because I'm from Nova Scotia, but in I'm not in Nova Scotia right now, I think there's a real hesitancy by the government to regulate private lands, and that's inherent of private property rights, and you can't tell me what to do with my land, and but if you do look at places like the Northeast states, and we all think of America the free, they can do anything they want, but like, you can't build a house within 50 meters of the ocean in Massachusetts, but you try and do that at 30 meters in Nova Scotia and people have an uproar. So I think there just needs to be like more of an awareness to like the public good and what regulations can do to contribute to that. And also biocontrol programs for HWA would be next.
Any other questions from the floor? I'm going to answer my own question, building on what Joanna said earlier. I think a land use plan would be awesome. Yeah, really great. Okay, anyone else?
I have another one. I just
Yeah.
want to take up more
No,
time.
please.
But okay, so typically we talk about renaturation in like the indigenous setting, but what it really is about like centering the women's experiences on landscapes, because women have different connections to landscapes than men do. So I was just wondering, in your guys' experience, like how does that play out in your work, and why is it important that you're in your roles as women?
Oh, great question. I'm not sure I can. Did everyone hear that? I don't know how I could rephrase that. I think you said it so well.
Why are women awesome?
Why are women awesome?
I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily a good answer, but I think that like for PEI, especially like being privately owned, there's a lot of like emotional connection to our land and to our forests. Like a lot of people, it's generation. You're looking at family farms that have been like, you might be 4th, 5th, 6th generation, and I find that like just kind of being able to play on people's heartstrings a little bit and getting them to like fall in love with their land because of that, and like have that connection to like their family and to their past and their history. I think that's a skill that like women maybe do a better job of doing. I don't know though, like, yeah.
For the watershed groups, I think most groups are pretty good to have a balance of men and women on the crews. And I think that's important because the women bring different aspects, and sometimes when we hire a lot of young summer students and we get a couple guys in the chainsaws, they want to go crazy, but the women kind of bring that balance, and I think that's good to have on the crews.
So it'd be a lot easier if it was a segregated event. But it's also really great that there are men in the room. I think like I see like I have a lot of female staff. Like I think because of who I am, I've attracted females to work for me. But I think like there's a level of accountability. Like a lot of the women who work for me get a lot done, and it helps influence the men to also like meet a high bar. And like I know there's like plenty of productive men out there, but I think like the dedication and perseverance I see from women is really, really strong. And I think there's like a real inherent passion and love for the land and what we do too, and that comes out a lot in what I see, especially from some of the younger women who I work with.
I think the conservation world requires a lot of care, and women naturally just take on more of a nurturing role. Not to say that men don't have that aspect as well, but I think it's just kind of draws us into the conservation world as having that natural care.
Thanks. Any other questions for our panelists? Trudy.
I'll start with Mary Jane, but maybe the other panelists might want to weigh in. You mentioned earlier that Nova Scotia does have a Women in Forestry Association. Could you just say maybe a few words about what that is, how it came about?
Yeah, so we call it a mentorship group. So we've had a couple iterations throughout the years. Like it started kind of back in like probably 2015, 2016. Emergency Tobiatic Research Institute hosted a couple events for female woodlot owners. And then it kind of morphed into actually like a couple of the young women who are working in industry just wanted some women to help mentor them. So there are two individuals, Jillian Welding-Genge and Liz Cogan, who work for the Department of Natural Resources, who kind of like formalized this mentorship group. And since it hasn't just been, it's morphed into more than just like going and seeing what happens on Crown lands to seeing what, you know, we're doing at the community forest, or what, you know, researchers are doing to monitor species at risk. Like, it's really grown to showcase the wide diversity of careers that are available for women or anyone in forestry. You know, we've even done things like wreath making, which is definitely more traditionally like female, but you know, it's turned into more of a social thing and a peer support group too. And yes, it is like mostly professionals who are working in the sector, but we try and not be like, oh, you have to be a forester or a forest technician. Like, if you're working in the woods, you're kind of welcome to join. Yeah, and I think the peer support aspect, you know, kind of maybe started as feeling like, you know, there weren't a lot of us, so we needed to mobilize. But it's kind of transitioned into more of like a movement, and like I just was at the Forest Professionals Nova Scotia conference, and the amount of women in the room now compared to 10 years ago, it's super inspiring. It's so amazing to see.
I might build off of that last comment, unless, sorry, I don't want to jump in.
Oh, that just made me think there's a Women in Wood Facebook group, and I know they partner with the Canadian Institute of Forestry sometimes to put on seminars and stuff. And if you go to that group, you can get like gear suggestions and advice and yeah, and stuff like that.
Awesome, that's a good recommendation. I was just going to ask, how have you seen this industry change since you've gotten into it?
In my own personal experience, at the beginning when I was first getting into chainsawing especially, it was very hard to find PPE that fit properly, or the selection was just really small. For the first couple years that I was sawing, I was in a men's pant that was too big. So to see just, I guess, companies broaden their PPE equipment to fit more bodies, and that's just really changed for me. So it's nice to have access to PPE that fits.
I would just say, since I started working with the Watershed groups, there have been a lot of women coordinators, but even in the last 5-10 years, I've seen a lot of women step into the role of Watershed Coordinator, and they're doing a great job. So just a plug there for the women Watershed Coordinators.
Like, echo what I just said. I think on the professional side of things, like with the Registered Professional Foresters Association, we've just seen, like, when I first became an RPF, like, I was the first applicant in like 5 years, whereas now we're seeing like 5 to 7 year. I mean, men and women, but it just seems like forestry is like a growing profession, and that's great to see. Yeah.
Any other questions? We've got a few minutes left. Helena?
I have a question potentially for everybody in the room. I'm just going to take advantage of the numbers of people here. I'm wanting to know, are there such things as safety glasses that you can get prescription lenses?
Yes, there is.
Where do I go?
The question was, can you get safety glasses with prescription lenses? And apparently, yes, you can. Anyone want to add some details on?
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure Vogue Optical does have an option. I know, like, I have a younger sister, and she actually works in automotive, and so the company, like, that she's working for, they got them for her prescription ones, which is like kind of awesome. But yeah, I think that there's definitely places on PEI that are doing it, and I just know that because my sister has a pair. But yeah, cool.
Nice. Any other questions from the floor? Even just practical questions. Okay. Maybe we'll open it up as well. We've got, I think, 15 minutes left. If there are any other questions for our panelists, or Helena, or Kate is still back there. Any other questions from the floor? Yeah, over here.
I understand this is the first annual. Are we doing this again next year?
Well, are we doing this again next year? Jane?
I hope so.
I hope so.
Maybe I'm gonna find out private woodlot.
Maybe on somebody's private woodlot. That would be cool. Glenaldale.
You can go right down the road.
And they have a fantastic woodlot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get the same catering because that was really good.
Yeah, number, email,
just for the room. Yeah.
What would be your number one piece of advice for a new woodlot owner that
What would be your number one piece of advice for?
who wants to, like, on the conservation side, not looking to monetize?
Great, yeah. What would be your one piece of advice, first piece of advice for a new woodlot owner who wants to do some conservation in their woodlot?
I think a big thing that you can do is just spend time in your woods to start, looking all around, falling in love with your forest, seeing it change seasonally. Yeah, I think just developing an appreciation for that woodlot so that you can put your heart into how you want to see it in the future.
I'm kind of not going to answer this question directly, or exactly the same here, but I'd say for a new woodlot owner, you can manage your woodlot for multiple values. You don't have to be all one way or another. You can go stand by stand and manage for different values, whether that be timber, maple syrup, and just recreation, wildlife. Don't box yourself in. Really think about it.
Yeah, I would start by getting a management plan done, and they can work with you to follow all the goals that you want, whether that's wildlife habitat or, like you said, maple syrup. So having that management plan, then you can work off of that to implement different restoration techniques or treatments from that.
I agree. I think Joanna made a great point. Like, you are interested in sustainability, but you can still harvest your firewood and use your woodlot in different ways and still be doing it sustainably. And yeah, great advice. Yeah.
Just to add on to that, don't panic with your woodlot. But what I did for the management plan is I just looked at some, and I looked at the headings, just to kind of get an idea of what a management plan would cover. And then I kind of went through in my mind for like a year, what do I think of that? Just to, it's kind of, and I would sit in the woodlot and talk to the trees about it. But yeah, I think just even looking at the headings, just to see what a management plan is.
Yeah, absolutely. To add to that, like, we went to a lot of the sessions last year that the Woodlot Owners Association put on, and it was like super helpful and a great place to start. You have no idea what you're doing. You just want to take care of it, and like we're just looking to use ours like recreationally at this point and firewood, but just in low amounts. And yeah, so it's been super helpful with that and really diverse, and so I wish I could to you guys because it's been extremely helpful as I grew up around the woods but not ever working in the woods or anything like that, so
That's great. So one first step might be to join the PEI with us.
Yeah.
Someone else has their hand up over here.
Just wanted to put in an observation. We've had a woodlot now for a number of years. Came into the family 40 years ago. It was a clear cut and it's been left there ever since. So it's only lately that I've stirred myself to do something. And I have to say that, as Hanna said, like the forest management plan is actually been an extremely positive experience for us. The work was great. It's a parcel that's quite inaccessible. You have to fight your way through old logging roads to get to it. It's 200 acres. We have drone shots. We have like professional analysis of the stand, really well described. We know what's in it now. We got what I thought were a good objective range of options as to what to do with it. And we found that to be just an extremely helpful experience. And even if you decide not to proceed like with any kind of treatments, you'll know what you have. And we're definitely going to go ahead with some things. In fact, my husband, who was dubious, is so stuck with it, he now wants to do a management plan for our home property instead, which is in Queens County instead of Kings. So definitely we've been won over. We were very impressed.
Thank you. And the back.
Just wondering if a new woodlot owner wanted to have someone come to the property and tell them what they have on their property, all the species, and whether or not there are any invasive species, and what they're lacking in, and what they need more of, what they need less of.
Yeah, I would suggest you contact the PEI Forest Enhancement Program. You can talk to a provincial technician who works on private land, and they can come out and walk your woodlot with you and develop one of those management plans. And also just say, like, if you have multiple values that you want to work on your property, you can sit down with them and tell them some of your objectives, and they will work with you to develop a plan that will help you meet those objectives. So that could be wildlife, it could be recreation, it could be firewood. They're a really great resource for you. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything. I didn't mean to take over.
I would just say that, like, if you're not sure if you have an invasive species on your property, the Invasive Species Council is happy to help you ID, like, plants and insects and stuff. So it could be native, doesn't matter. If you send the pictures to them on Facebook or email, they're happy to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I forgot to mention
No.
that. Yeah, Invasive Species Council, they're a fantastic group. And so if you have something that you think might be invasive, you can send a photo to them, and they're super happy to ID it for you, and maybe even come out if it's something that they're really interested in. Yeah. Any other Jeannie? Come on up. Do you want to use this?
When I first got my woods, I didn't know the names of the trees or lots of things.
Hey Jeannie, come over here.
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is learn what's in your woods by observing, taking pictures. You can use Google Lens to ID it, and then take somebody with you and tell them what it is, or ask them if they know what it is. Just to learn the names and start observing everything, bugs, the birds, frogs, plants, find out if they're invasive or not. And yeah, it's fun to do, and you'll start looking more closely.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor or thoughts?
I just want to say, like, I came from like a healthcare fisheries background before I got started working for the PEI-FLPP Association, and I mean, I grew up in the woods. My family has over 100 acres in peaks, and I just think like education is really key. Like, I've learned so much in the last like 7 months just from working with PEI-FLPP Association, FLPP, such an amazing program. So I think there's so many organizations, Watershed Alliance, Invasive Species Council, and Helena, like, learned so much, like, up in Lennox Island, we did the Up West Forest Fest. I just feel like there's so much out there. If people just go and do some research, they will learn so much, so, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of great resources and groups out there. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's a pretty good time. We have 5 minutes left. If anyone has any last burning questions, or if anyone on the panel wants to share any final reflections, we can do that too.
Julie-Lynn, can I?
Yeah, Roger.
On behalf of my species.
Yeah. Yes, I guess so.
Sometimes the old white guys can be helpful. We're talking about all these resources. At least we can tell you all the mistakes we made, what not to do, and you can take it or leave it. And somebody, you can say, oh, we don't think like that anymore. We don't do that anymore. Anyway, pass. Most people are willing to share their experience.
Yeah, that's a great reflection. Mary Jane, did you want to contribute?
I will echo that. Like, we're actually, so I just stepped down as president of the RPF Association in Nova Scotia. I'm now past president, and like, there's too many young people on council. There's no intergenerational knowledge. And so people actually don't really understand the governance of the organization, and it's a big problem. And we need more old white guys. Because I mean, that was all the profession was for so long. So if you look at the Forestry Hall of Fame in Nova Scotia, that's what it is. But you know, a lot of them have been like, oh, I've done my time. It's time for the next generation. But it's like, no, we still need you. Like, come back. So, you know, I want to see more men like you kind of step up too. You know, your work's not done yet.
Certainly there's lots of amazing men in this industry in PEI. lots of them I work with, Gary Schneider, Eric Edward. There are some really fantastic men out there who also like to support women. And thank you for all the men in the room today. It's really nice to have you here supporting us. I'll back over to Kathy, unless you have a question.
This is less a question. We're coming up to the end of the program, and it's just been such an exciting day. It's been a thrill. The reason I'm here is because I chaired the PEI Woodlot Owners Association for a 5-year period from 2018 to 2023. And during that period, I guess I was the only woman on the board at the time, and I went to the meeting because I had my own woodlot. And I've always had a passion for the woods and all of the life out there, the trees that are giants on the earth that breathe and communicate and so on. So being part of the Woodlot Owners Association has been a really wonderful experience, and I would encourage all of you to pick up a membership. It's the association that kind of is a broad umbrella for all of these different relations to forests and woods and everything in the forests. So I just wanted to echo everything that everyone said today. Very exciting. Keeping an eye on the weather out there, hoping that we don't want to stay here all afternoon, although we'd love to. And I just wanted to, I guess, first of all, acknowledge the Woodlot Owners Association. If there are members of the board, would you please stand up? Okay. And members of the Watershed Alliance, would you please stand? And I'm in danger of forgetting many of you that are here with other organizations. Anyone from the Invasive Species Council? Yeah. So I think I better give up while I'm ahead here. I haven't been able to name them all, but you know who you are. And just wanted to extend thanks to those who prepared the lovely lunch and who organized this day. And I guess if there's no other further questions for everyone, we will wrap it up. And just wanted to thank Julie-Lynn for doing a great job on the panel. And all of the Judy.
Jane, were you going to say something? I wanted to say thank you to the FLPP
I wanted
program.
to thank the forested, FLPP I'm going to say.
Forested landscape for priority place for species at risk. Who provided the funding for this and all kinds of funding.
Who provided the funding to at least to a lot of organizations, but also to the Woodlot Association. And we've hosted a number, over 20 walks, 2 or 3 seminars, and this is the final year of their funding. And there are 2 people in this room, or 3, that I'm going to embarrass. One is Karen Potter, who was a great she's still keeping us together, but now we have to pick up the momentum. The second person is Julie-Lynn Zahavich, who was part of the third person was our FLPP coordinator for this year, who did an outstanding job on the 8 woodlot walks, the number of participants, and that's Kelsey Boudreau right at the back. Thank you everybody for coming.